I will use the microphone, and I may put it down a little bit, but to walk over and point out some things on the screen. So I'm here mainly because the United States was built in Newport News, and I was watching as the ship was being towed from Philadelphia down here to Mobile, and kind of got reinterested in it. You know, when you're there in Newport News, and this is a Newport, they consider it a Newport News ship. It's not necessarily an American ship or the United States ship, it's a Newport News ship. And you get a little jaded to these things. And so when I was watching it being towed down, I got a little reinterested in it and saw it come up into Mobile, and I was watching some of the posts on social media, and everybody was like, man, this is really cool. This is a beautiful ship, but don't know anything about it. So I reached out to John and I said, well, you know, I actually know a little bit about it. I'd be happy to come down and talk to you all about it and give you a little bit of history and show you some pictures and stuff. And he said, yeah, absolutely. So I was already coming down anyway for Easter and coming back to the state. And so it's a real pleasure for me to be here and to spend a little bit of time with you this evening, just giving you some history of the ship that's right down the road from us here. And so the next time that you go by there, I hope this will give you a little bit more of insight of what it was like in its heyday. And so we're just going to walk through a little bit of the history of it, and we're going to end with some very special celebrities and stars that were on board. I know that's what you all came here to see, and hopefully some really interesting stories about it. So we'll start off with the story of the SS United States. Now, it got its genesis from William Francis Gibbs, and he is the designer, builder of this ship. And he was, in some respects, like me. I was a failed architect at Mississippi State. I made it about a year before they came and told me, well, you're failing in math and you're failing in physics, and you can't be an architect and not know those things. And I said, well, I will hire people like that. And that's how I ended up at Montevallo. Gibbs attended Harvard University. He went there in the engineering school, and he dropped out his sophomore year with grades like I had at Mississippi State. He was fascinated with naval architecture and naval engineering, and was probably, like myself, not an applied student. He ended up going to Columbia and then also apprenticing himself to Admiral David Taylor, and really started almost in a way self-taught in engineering. If any of you are familiar with the Mahan class destroyers in World War II, he is responsible for those. They were lightweight, they were fast combat vessels, and used high temperature steam pressure in the steam turbine engines, and all of this experience he brought forward into the United States. We'll revisit Gibbs on and off during the evening, but he is the designer and the builder of this. He had some really interesting feelings about ship design, and a lot of it came out of the 1912 disaster of the Titanic. And he made some adjustments in the ship design for the United States based on what had gone wrong with Titanic. He was very much afraid of fire on board ship. As a result, there were only 2 pieces of wood on board the SS United States. One was a 28-foot cutting board in the kitchen that was about 6 to 8 inches thick, 28 feet long, and the other was a Steinway piano. Now, he actually went to, I think it was Theodore Steinway, and demanded that Steinway build an aluminum piano, aluminum grand. And Steinway said, you're out of your mind. I'm going to build it out of wood, and built it out of mahogany. And he had to actually take a mahogany piano that he had built, burn it so that Gibbs would believe that the mahogany wouldn't actually burn if the ship caught on fire. And after that, he relented, and that was one of the 2 pieces of wood that was allowed on board. Now this is Newport News, Virginia. This is the James River down here below us. This is the James River Bridge that's 5 miles across. This is Newport News shipbuilding. And we're going to spend a little bit of time showing you where the ship was built. Right now, most of the ships that are built there are all military. In fact, they build the aircraft carriers there. The brand new John F. Kennedy has just been finished in this dry dock bay here and is docked out front here. We have up to 3 carriers at any given time in port. They come in, they have the nuclear reactor changed out, all the nuclear material changed out. A lot of times now they're taking the entire island off the ship, which is the big piece that sticks up over the flight deck. They take that off, put in all new island, all new computers, radars, all of that stuff. And the Gerald Ford is in there right now, and they've got problems with both of those 2 aircraft carriers because they've changed the way that they launch aircraft off of that. But Newport News shipbuilding got its start in the 19th century. Collis Huntington, who was a railroad magnate, founded the shipyard. It's one of the largest natural harbors in the world, and he ran train lines. And you can see these black areas along here that come down to the Dominion Terminal. This is the coal piers. And Huntington he had the railways. He bought a lot of coal mines and coal lands up in West Virginia, hence the name Huntington, West Virginia. And when you bought those and built the railways, you got a lot of right-of-way land on either side of that. So he made an extraordinary amount of money, built the shipyard, and he had both commercial ships and naval ship contracts. And now Newport News is a major naval shipbuilding facility. Although we do get cruise ships in every once in a while, and we do get other commercial ships that'll come in and they'll go into the dry dock and get some repairs done that they can't get anywhere else there. So the story starts really in 1950 at Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company. In the 1930s, the brother-in-law of the president of the shipyard, this guy's name was Thomas Skinner, and he was hired basically because his wife was the sister of the president of the shipyard to paint scenes inside the shipyard at a time when photography was not unknown and motion pictures were also not unknown. But this is one of the scenes. This is actually almost a life-size portrait of the painting. We have 13 of these paintings that he did in between 35 and 56 of the interior of the shipyard. This is called the Foundry. And if you've ever been around up to Birmingham and seen all the steel mills, this could easily be the same sort of thing that you would find in the steel mills there. Obviously, pre-OSHA days, them standing that close to molten metal being poured out. And they are pouring it into a mold where it will be cooled and then taken to the next stage of construction. This is called the Angle Iron Shed, and it's another place that's still around at the shipyard. And you see there's ovens back here, and they lift the door and these beams slide out. These are I-beams or T-beams, and you see all the pegs in the holes in the floor. The gentleman over here in the hats have the exact dimensions for this rib and know where it's going to go on the ship. And while it's white hot, they bend this and peg it into the floor until it cools. And when it's cool, it's taken out and put in the exact spot that it goes on the ship. And the gentleman here in the center of the thing is striking it with his sledgehammer as he walks backward, and they put the pins in. And we have some silent motion picture from the 30s. And this beam is absolutely white. And he's kicking it with his boot to just that one little quarter of an inch more to get it absolutely perfect. And again, pre-OSHA days, or at least they weren't there watching when this happened. Then it moves into the laying off shed. This is actually, we know a lot about this painting from one of our volunteers. They were building either the aircraft carrier Hornet or the aircraft carrier Enterprise right before World War II. The gentleman that's been over here in the blue shirt and the jeans, he was apprenticed to the gentleman there in the white jumpsuit, which was his father. You can imagine the dynamic there between father and son. You're not doing it right. Redo it. That's not the way they did it when I grew up. But the gentleman there, Edgar Nettles in the blue, after he retired from the shipyard, was a volunteer at the museum for about 20 years before he passed away. And so what they're doing is they lay these metal sheets down and they lay the wood over it, and they go along and they tap the holes in it, and then they drill out the holes. And then the crane operator will lift these plates up, and then they take it out and rivet it directly onto the hull of the ship. So really interesting part of the process. And then this is the machine shop, and this is where the propellers are finalized, and all of the burrs are taken off the blades, and the prop shafts are fixed and made sure that they're balanced and everything before they're taken out and put on the ship. And you can see these just cavernous rooms that all of this work is done in. And we've got another photograph actually, of the same scene a few years later. But I just wanted to show you these to give you an idea of the process and what it looks like of how ships like the United States were actually built. So this is actually the construction of the United States. This is in 1950 and 51. These are hot riveters putting the superstructure together, and you can see the hull there in the background. There were like 3,100 workers that built the ship over a period of about 19 months. Now, this is on the promenade deck. They're doing some welding. Nisi, I think this is the photograph. You got it? Yep, that's it. On the promenade deck, and I'll show you where this is located in a few minutes. Another gentleman doing some riveting work there. And then this is actually in the machine shop, and you can see two of the propeller shafts for the United States being turned, and these are about 63, 65 feet long and about 4 feet in diameter. They're pretty massive. We actually had one laying out in our parking lot for a number of years, and now it's on display with one of the ship's propellers on it. But you had to have a massive crane to hoist these things up. And this is just any given day in the shipyard as the workers are leaving at the end of a shift, headed off for home. You can see the funnel on the side. And she was actually built in dry dock number 1. And rather than a normal ship launch where the thing rolls out into the water, they just flooded the dry dock and then tugged her out into the James River. So let's look at some of the interesting facets of the ship, her design. Let me see if I can get this thing going, that Gibbs came up with. The first is the rudder. And part of the problem with the Titanic was that the rudder was far too small for the size of the ship, and so when it got into trouble and couldn't miss hitting the iceberg, a lot of it had to do with the size of the rudder. And you can see just how massive this rudder is. If you look right up here, you can see a guy on the top of the dry dock there. You know, really big rudder. Now, it's called semi-balanced, but it is balanced, and it's actually designed and feathered for high maneuverability under speed. And you can see that it's got 2 propellers on the starboard side, and it will have 2 propellers on the port side as well. We'll get into that in just a little bit. This is the tow tank testing model. It's about 16 feet long, and before they built it, they would take it up to a tank testing facility outside of DC, and they would run it, and they would look at how the underside of the hull worked, and you can see the amount of swing in the rudder, and it would be in the path of the two inboard propellers, not the two outboard propellers. And you can see how it works there, and the shafts. And then we have the propellers. Now, this was actually a revolutionary design. This is probably one of the few ships that you will ever see this particular configuration on. You'll notice what we have here, the two inboard propellers, which are these two large ones here, are 5-bladed props. The two forward and outboard props are 4-blade propellers. They're each connected to a different engine room. The two main propellers, which are the 5 blades, are connected to an engine room that was aft. The two 4-blade props are connected to an engine room up forward, and that's in case you remember the Titanic. Part of the reason it sank was the failure of the compartmentalization and allowed the water over the top of the bunkers, and each, after it starts going from one to the next, you've really lost control at that point. If something happened forward or amidships, they could shut down and compartmentalize the forward engine room and go strictly on the aft propellers. One of the things that Gibbs did with the 5-blade and the 4-blade configuration, when they're running at top speed, all propellers turning, and the lightweight construction of the ship, which was pretty much all aluminum, it was a very light ship for 903 feet long. This thing would really fly. And so if you notice where the propellers are attached, let me see if I've got a good, yeah, okay, so they're also counter-rotating propellers. So S5, which is starboard 5-blade prop and starboard 4-blade prop, they turn clockwise, and the port side propellers turn counterclockwise. And so that's to cut out the torque. So if you had one propeller and it's turning clockwise, then the ship is going to want to hog towards the port side. So you have counter-rotating props. Now on outboard engines, you have sometimes an inline propeller that does the same thing and cuts out the torque there. So this is in the dry dock. You can see the size of the person compared to the 5-blade prop. And then inside there, you see the propeller shaft runs down in this covered, streamlined kind of fairing. Inside there was a walkway, a lit walkway that you could come all the way down to where the propeller exited that tunnel, and someone could come along there and check at any given time. And frequently, when they were at speed, at sea, once an hour, someone would go up and down those things. I can't think of a worse place to actually be sent to do your job. I wouldn't want to do that. So this is the propeller that we have at the museum. It's the port 5-blade inboard prop, and you can see the shaft on there. We had it at the shipyard, came and mounted this for us as you come into the museum on the propeller shaft. And the propeller shaft weighs so much that it's just balanced on that little support back there, and even with the prop on it, it's not going to tip forward. And so they just set it down there with a crane and walked off from it. But all 4 props are now in museums. There's one in SUNY. We have one, and I can't remember off the top of my head where the other 2 are at the moment. So this is the Mauretania of 1938, and Mauretania was a very famous fast ship that was considered after the war still to be a contemporary challenger to the United States. And you'll notice that it has 2 4-blade props, and actually almost underpowered for size, counter-rotating. This is a half model that we have in the museum of the Queen Elizabeth, 1939. This is a 38-foot long half model. And you'll remember the Queen Elizabeth sank in Hong Kong in 1972, I believe, 72 or 73, from a fire on board and fell over on her side and was there for a number of years until they finally broke it up. And you'll notice that the Queen Elizabeth has four propellers, but they're all four-bladed props. This was considered the main rival to the Blue Riband, which was the fastest passage east from New York to England, Ambrose Light to one of the lighthouses there in the Scilly Isles in England, to the United States. The next were the lifeboats and the rafts. This is directly from the Titanic incident. You'll see the large lifeboats along the deck. She's under power. There were life rings throughout the ship, life vests like you would find on any cruise ship today in the rooms. And then also this really cool innovation. This is a metal life raft. They're about 12, 15 feet long. It's got about 1.5 feet diameter. It's a welded piece of metal, will float. They would throw them in the water, and 25 or 30 people could gather around this and hold onto the ropes and float there until rescue came. And there's a picture of Gibbs again, but you can see he's sitting on a stack of these life rafts that would be thrown into the water. Then that was in addition to the lifeboats. The next innovation was the funnels, and if you get a chance, you can really see these pretty well now when you go down to see the ship down the way. The funnels were raked aft to make it look much speedier, just to the naked eye. They were both, well, the forward one was 65 feet high. The aft funnel is actually shorter than the forward, and you won't pick it up visually because of the way that they've done the paint scheme. And they did the paint scheme to compensate for the shorter funnel in the back, and that was to make sure that the most of the smoke that was coming out of the aft funnel. And you can see these sort of winglets on the side here in the back that deflected a lot of the exhaust up away from the deck here where passengers were reclining in these in the deck chairs. The aft one also had, there's a lot of extra space in the funnels, and if you took a dog with you, the kennel was actually here in the aft funnel. So this is actually, of all the photographs in our museum, and we have probably over 1 million, this is absolutely one of my favorite. This is at the shipyard. The funnel has been pretty much finished. It's ready to go on board the ship, and you see all these great cars just parked around it. It's just the coolest looking thing. But you can see the angle of the rake of the funnel, and then also the sort of the aerodynamic cap there on it. And but just think that's a really cool shot. The other part, and this is also from both an effect of the Titanic, but also World War II, was the radar mast. And the United States went to sea with some of the most advanced radar equipment on board any ship. She was built primarily under secrecy as a naval contract, but as a commercial ship, because they learned with the experience of the Queen Mary, the Mauretania, and the Queen Elizabeth specifically being converted into troop ships, that Gibbs wanted to be able to convert this into a troop ship very quickly. And so the government paid for a lot of the contract for this. But the radar mast had all of the most and the newest radar equipment on board. It was on the highest point of the ship, facing forward. You can still see it. It looks almost just like this. And if you see right there at the bottom of the mast is a window, and they would put a lookout up there. And so when the ship is making the speeds that she was crossing at, 38, 39 knots, which is incredibly fast for a 900-foot ship, it always paid to have someone up. You know, you could trust radar, but then can you trust radar? So they had a lookout posted all the time up there with the radio equipment down to the bridge, which is just below, could communicate with the helmsman, the navigator, and the captain about anything that's coming up. And you can see some of the radar equipment there on the top of it. But you can see that very well if you go down to view the ship. Now, one of the other qualities about it, and it's very subtle, and if you go up to the deck here at the museum and you take a few minutes to look directly at the bow of the United States, you'll see something. Hopefully there's not too much stuff around it that prevents you from seeing it, but if you look at the side of the Mauretania, it's absolutely vertical, okay? And that's how most of the liners were of this day. This is the Queen Elizabeth model, and you can see her side is absolutely vertical. Sharp bow, but vertical side. This is the sister ship. This is the SS America. It was owned by the United States Lines. Was the sister ship to the United States. And you can see, if you look very closely, right up in here, where it goes from the black to the white, it kind of curves out a little bit. It kind of indents a little bit and curves out. This was a feature that Gibbs had designed into the destroyers in the 1940s. And it's called tumble home if you're talking about a wooden schooner or a wooden ship. It's a very sort of aerodynamic feature. It shapes the wind kind of coming around the vessel. And it's a small, maybe insignificant nuance, but at speeds of 35 to 39 knots, when most of the red part of the ship is doing all the work in the water, to be able to kind of shape the air around just gives it that much more advantage in terms of speed. The SS United States is actually a little bit more extreme than the America was because it was another 11 years older, and he had learned a lot of things building the destroyers. But it's really interesting, and you might be able to pick it up if you look at it. It's a nice vantage point to be able to see it from there. But that was another significant quality to the United States. Oops, wrong way. So this is, as the ship has been is about to be launched. They filled up the dry dock. I'm reliably informed that's either water or coffee that gentleman's drinking. And we're getting ready for launching day, which was June 23rd, 1951. And that's a ceremonial launching bottle that was gifted to the museum from the shipyard. This is Senator Senator Tom Connally and his wife, Lucy Connally, who were the sponsors of it. And you can see them smashing the champagne bottle there on the bow. She was floated out into the James River and then went about her speed trials. Oops. So let's talk about the speed of the ship. This is her in the James River. At the same time, the USS Forrestal is being constructed in the shipyard right next to her. And you can see all the tugs alongside of her. And what an elegant ship. So the Blue Ribbon is a competition between commercial vessels, liners particularly, going from east to west and west to east. The westernmost point was Ambrose Light, which was in New York Bay, and the distance measured between there and Bishop Rock Light, which is at the end of the Scilly Isles there in southwest England. Her outbound trip was 2,942 miles, 3 days, 10 hours, and 40 minutes. That's an average speed of 34.5 knots. She beat the Queen Mary's record by 10 hours on that trip. Turning around and coming back on the return voyage, it was a little bit shorter trip, 3 days, 12 hours, 12 minutes, average speed of 35 knots. That maiden voyage won her the blue ribbon, and to this day, the United States still owns that record. We have the flag in our museum. Richard Branson has done it with a couple of vessels that he owns. He's never done it both ways, and his is not considered like a passenger liner or a true liner, true commercial ship. I mean, there's these foiling trimarans and catamarans that can make it in 2 days and something with one crew member, flying 50 knots on average, but that's a completely different thing. And to this day, the United States still holds the fabled blue ribbon. And this was a medallion that was struck after she completed the eastward and westward voyages, giving the speeds and the elapsed time, and that she had won the blue ribbon. This is the blue ribbon. It's a little underwhelming. It's just a blue pennant. Sorry to build it all up and then let you down a little bit, but it is what it is. There's a lot more significance carried in the name of it than it looks. But it's a good-sized pennant. This is rolled out in our painting storage area, and then we keep it there. It's a wool flag textile. So it's the kind of thing that if we had it out a lot would deteriorate because of the light on the wool threads. Here she is leaving New York on her maiden voyage, arriving in Southampton 3 days, 10 hours later, and then on her return trip to New York after that. And you can see all the tugs and the ferries and the fireboats and out to meet her as she comes past the Statue of Liberty. So let's go on board and we'll show you around at some of the unique features that made her what she is, what a lot of people remember her for, besides the speed and the construction. And this is her in New York, color photograph. The ship in the foreground is the America, and that is the United States in her heyday up forward. Does anybody notice anything about the smoke in the United States? It's white. All the other smoke that comes out of the aft funnel is black, and that has to do with the steam turbines. It's all technical, but most times the white smoke came out of the forward funnel, and the darker black smoke came out of the aft funnel. But they are the two sisters together in New York City in the mid-50s. Some of the promotional material that's in our archives, the posters, fastest to Europe. And then this is something that you would get when you came on board, just a little cutaway guide to the ship to show where everything was located that was necessary. And you can see the two engine rooms, the first one that's underneath the forward funnel and the second one that's under the aft funnel. The forward one's connected to the four-blade outboard props, and the aft one is connected to the large five-blade props. Now, with each of these, I'm going to show you some of the pieces that are in the museum. This is a buffet from where food and everything was prepped and served in the first class dining room, and you'll see these artistic pieces on the wall above the buffet in the ship. These are all made of blown glass, have a large amount of asbestos in them, so we keep them wrapped because now they're 70 years old, I guess, and it's starting to crumble, and all that asbestos becomes airborne. And it's those of us in the curatorial and collections management staff that get exposed to that now. But you can see how they were originally designed and where they were placed. The buffet is there underneath the sculptures with the wait staff in front, and you can see a model of the United States on the buffet there at one point. This is one of the menus. I believe this is from Saturday the 5th, June 5th of 1954. They're having lobster Newburg, broiled steelhead salmon steak, Southdown lamb au jus, and sirloin steak with mushroom sauce. That's the entrees for that day. And that's in the VIP dining. There were 2 other dining rooms. Now, this is the first class ballroom, and you see these glass panels. These are carved glass panels by an artist named Charles Gilbert, and they were fabricated in New York City by Harrison Glass Works. They are carved using sandblasting and then painted very delicately. This is obviously a black and white photograph, but and that's the panels themselves. There's about 20 of them all told. They're about 1 inch thick, about 7 feet tall, and beautifully painted. These are photographed against a black background so that you can actually see the colors that are in each one of them. It's an underwater scene in each panel, and one panel has a hidden naked mermaid, which the volunteers used to love to point out to teenage boys when they came through the museum. Go figure. But just beautiful things. And they were lit from the bottom. And so at night, the panels wouldn't appear to be just the glass with this sort of black and white look to it, but the colors would actually would come through. And they're absolutely beautiful. This is another saloon or ballroom. You see the panels on the side. These are glass in metal panels. They're backlit so that they look like stars at night. And this was another artist that they hired to create these, and they were both vertical and then in the ceiling to give the impression of stars. And you can see in this first class saloon these sort of Native American, Southwest Native American inspired designs. This is one of the panels that we have. It's about 8 feet long. It's got a sandy texture on it over metal, and then these sort of designs painted onto it. This is one of the ballrooms or the bars, and you can see the table and the sort of the Art Deco inspired lamps that we have in the collection. You can see right over here in the foreground on the right one of the tables, and there's one of the grand pianos that Steinway actually made out of wood. Now, in the first class ballroom, you had these sort of, it's not burlap, but it's that sort of texture chair that's all around the tables here. Interestingly enough, we had some of the chairs in our cafe for a long time, and it turned out that they were all full of asbestos. The tape, mastic tape that was in there, listen, there's so much asbestos on that ship. And it was really, you can't fault them. They was very afraid of fire. It was a very lightweight ship. If you look at the interior of the Mauritania, the Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mary, there was a lot of wood appointments and fireplaces and all of this sort of stuff that could very easily combust. The legs look like they're wooden. They're not. They're aluminum. The fabric wouldn't burn. So we tested not the fabric-coated chairs, but the ones that were sort of a naga hide or a leather type. They also had asbestos in it, but they were sealed, so we felt okay leaving those in the cafeteria for the moment. But those we do not let anybody sit in, because if you plunk down on it, this dust comes up, and it's not dust. It's actually. But this is the tourist class dining room. This is one of the tables that or the chairs that we have in our cafe. And if you'll notice on the tables there, the little sides to the edge of the tables, those are lips, and you can raise those up so that if the ship is rolling at sea and you're trying to eat, you can raise those lips up, and that keeps the plates and everything from sliding off from the edge of it. And each tabletop actually had a code on it, and it told you which linen to put on the table. It had a number, and which size glass that was used to hold the linen down once you put it on there. And it was at the corner, 2 corners of the table. Now this is the bar in the first class saloon. It has some great stories. Now we got a lot of this material donated to us by a former doctor in Newport News who loved the United States. She paid millions of dollars for a lot of this stuff at auction in '84. She had a restaurant down in Nag's Head, and she fitted out to look like the dining room on the SS United States. So the bar was in there. It was upstairs. And so when she gave it to us, we went down there, spent a month down there one summer, and got all this stuff back up to the museum. We actually had to take the wall apart to get the bar out. It's 38 feet long. It's sort of kidney-shaped. And when we got it back, it had refrigerators and dishwashers and freezers all in there, and each one had its own special little 2.5-inch thick asbestos blanket on it. So the wiring was all 1950s and had asbestos around it. We knew we couldn't in any way put that on exhibit. We were never going to get the dishwashers and that stuff working again, so we took it all out. It's empty on the back side, but what's really important about the bar are the little nameplates that are on the top of the bar. And they're scratched up from years of use at the Nag's Head restaurant. But this is Bob Hope, comedian, sat here. There was a stool. Now this one is really, really interesting. And this is like the one thing that we always show people when we go back there. On the left, as you're facing the bar, was a plaque for Jackie Kennedy. In the middle was John Kennedy. And to his right was the plaque for Marilyn Monroe. So, presumably all 3 weren't in the bar at the same time. It's hard to tell by Jackie's face whether or not that was true or not. And John Wayne, actor, sat here. This is John Wayne and the captain on board the United States on its eastward crossing. And of course, William Francis Gibbs, designer, owner of SS United States. He has his special bar stool at the end of the bar. This is just some of the dishware that we have in the museum. Tons and tons of it. We could actually probably fit out the first class ballroom. The eagle is the symbol of the United States lines. You can see it here on the glass. And that was sort of the show plate, the actual dinner plates and cups and saucers with the stars on it. And this is just one of the silver pieces. We have vases, forks, knives, spoons, little things for scooping salt, you name it. There's one of them in the collection from the United States. So if you go up on deck, you can see the aft funnel. Poor little kid trying to get out of the wind. This is not going through the Caribbean or not in the South Pacific. This is going across the North Atlantic at all times of the year. And there's some people there that don't look really comfortable or happy, except for this woman here in the front, wrapped up in a wool blanket, trying to get some sun as the ship is ripping along at 35 knots. But you could play ping pong and deck golf and different things. And if you're familiar with shuffleboard, even the pucks for shuffleboard were not wooden. They were made of a non-flammable material. So it may have slowed the game down or made it a little bit more difficult, but at least it wasn't going to cause a fire. This is the pool. There were no outdoor pools like you see today because they felt like at the speed that the ship was going to be going with the wind and everything, that it would not be conducive to swimming. The little flags that you see back there in the back are in the museum's collection. And the pools were down inside, down below. And I believe it's salt water. There was also a barber shop. And this is a cool piece that we actually have. And this goes back to the slide about Ambrose Light, to the light there in Britain. Every day, the porter, or several times during the day, the porter would come along and move the little piece there of the ship to put it in its proper longitude and latitude so that you could see where the ship was relative to the two continents. It's a very heavy piece, and that's almost life-size there on the left. And there was a movie theater on board down below, and you could go and watch a couple of films. The crew could actually see the same films in a different place. They were not allowed to mingle with the passengers at all, and so they would show the films twice a day, one for each watch of the crew. There was a really cool jukebox. We got this. We had a board meeting the December after we brought it. We put Christmas 45s in there and made $1.25 off of our trustees who played some music during the board meeting. This is different from a lot of the ones where the platter is selected and it's laid down horizontal and the needle comes over. The 45 is actually held vertical and the needle attaches to it like that, and then it spins and then it replaces the needle. It still works. There's a guy there in Newport News that takes care of jukeboxes, or not jukeboxes, jukeboxes, with the vacuum tubes. And so it has a great sound like you would expect from a 1950s or 60s jukebox. And some Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Sammy Davis Jr., great tunes. The 45s are scratched up a bit, but they are there, and we have extra little cards for all the records that we have. So this just shows a little bit of the layout. You would get this in your cabin to show where everything was, how to get to everything. Deck A, and you can see some of the cabin placements there. Everything was oriented towards the dining rooms and the saloons. And even though these are shown with some wood appointments, there was no wood on board the ships. This is a view inside one of the rooms, and you can see it has a really 50s, 60s kind of look to it. It was very modern, very lightweight, very, very elegant. One of the keys to the rooms, and then someone's identification card and their tender pass that you would have. Not too different from some of the paperwork that you get today. This is one of the other rooms. The baggage tag for tourist class. Some really busy window coverings. And one of the phones that you'll see pop up there. No dial. So the kids today, man, they really wouldn't know how to use this thing. I'm not sure I would have. And you can see one there on the countertop with one of the beds that folds down. The life preservers go under the bed there, and the little sink, and the porthole just to the right. This is what it looks like with the top bunk down. Most rooms had a Westinghouse fan in there. And then this is where most of the officers and some of the crew would eat their meals and relax when they were off watch. You can see a Westinghouse fan and a different type of phone hanging there. This is some of the kitchen crew. We did a really interesting project 2 years ago with a gentleman that lives in Newport News. We were doing a hidden histories project, trying to identify a number of the African American men who worked at the shipyard who built the museum during the Depression when they weren't building ships. And he noticed a couple of people in this photograph, and so we had him come in. His name is James Ford, and he spent about 2 hours with us telling us about 6 of the 10 people he was able to identify in this picture. And he is pointing here to a gentleman named, let me scoot this down here, Rank Boyd. And he knew Mr. Boyd's kids, knew his parents, and his father was Solomon Travis. And Solomon Travis was one of 5 African Americans that was brought on board during the sea trials to be aboard the United States during the sea trials. And he was a very interesting gentleman, and one of my staff was able to do still working on a blog. We were trying to identify the 4 other people in the photograph. But it's been really important for us to find out the names and histories of some of the people who not only built the ships, but were employed in building the museum in 1929 and 30. There we go. All right, to the stars. This is Francis Gibbs and his wife enjoying a cocktail with another young lady. This is the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, Wallis Simpson, the American, celebrating their anniversary on board. She looks a little happier than he does. This is a bizarre photograph. This is Salvador Dali on the right and Marlon Brando on the left. Haven't quite come to terms with that one yet. You just don't expect to see those two. First I thought it was Paul Newman, but it's Marlon Brando. This is Jack Lemmon and Billy Wilder, and Billy Wilder's wife, Audrey Young. Young Jack Lemmon. This is Prince Rainier and Princess Grace of Monaco. And you can see one of the tables. Judy Garland. And there was actually a film called Bon Voyage. It was a Disney film with Fred MacMurray and Tommy Kirk. And it was all about this family that goes to Europe on the United States. And most of the movie takes place in Europe as the kids are kind of coming to age and being introduced to Europe. And so I went on to IMDb to see if I actually may have seen this movie and something about it. And there was one goof, and it is when they shot the interior scenes on the soundstage. It was nothing but wood furnishings, and it makes the point clear here that there were wood furnishings were banned from the construction and the decor. So I thought, well, that's actually, if you're going to make a goof, that's a pretty cool one for this particular evening and event. Well, that's the United States maiden voyage at speed, just a beautiful ship. And just thank you very much for coming tonight, and we'll be glad to entertain any questions.